The crystal lights above shimmered like stars. I stood in Bellamy's jewelry, holding my breath. The diamond studs sparkled behind the glass, simple, elegant. I'd saved for 7 months just to afford them. This was supposed to be a moment of quiet victory. Something for myself for once. No one else's approval, no one else's voice, just me, my hard work, and this choice. Then the door chimed. I didn't even need to turn around. I knew that voice, sharp, familiar, layered in judgment. Eleanor Diane said, too loud, too polished. I turned slowly, already bracing. She walked in with her 2 friends like it was her stage, lips curled, eyes scanning. What are you doing in a place like this? My throat tightened. The air felt heavier now because I knew exactly what was coming, and I wasn't sure if I'd stay quiet this time. Diane's heels clicked sharply on the marble floor. She didn't smile, just looked me up and down slowly, like I was some joke in the wrong store. I thought you hated jewelry, she said, flicking her blonde hair off one shoulder. One of her friends chuckled behind her. The other pretended not to stare. I stayed still. Calm on the outside barely. Inside, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from restraint. Grace the saleswoman glanced at me kindly. She sensed the shift, but kept her tone warm. Your sister has an excellent eye, she said. Diane raised a brow. Sister, we're not that alike, are we? Her words stung more than I'd admit. Still I smiled. Small, measured. I had come for diamonds, not a war. But some battles find you even when you don't swing first. Diane leaned in closer, voice sugary, but her eyes sharp as glass. Planning to buy something? Or just playing dress up? Her tone made my skin prickle. I took a slow breath, looked back at Grace, then at the earrings. I'm buying them, I said, steady though my voice caught slightly at the end. Diane laughed, loud, as if I'd told the best joke of the day. Really, with your little designer job? She turned to her friends. That's adorable. I wanted to walk out. Not because I couldn't afford them, but because this moment, this feeling, was too familiar. I'd worked hard, really hard. This wasn't just a purchase, it was proof that I mattered too. And maybe that's why I didn't leave. Not this time. Because some lines, once crossed, change everything. Grace gently lifted the earrings from the case. The princess cut catches light beautifully, she said. She held them up beside my face. They suit you. I nodded soft. They're perfect. And I meant it. Not just the stones, but what they stood for. Diane stepped closer. Perfect for what? Trying to feel rich for 5 minutes? She smiled without warmth. One of her friends smirked. The other pretended to scroll her phone. Grace stayed quiet, but her eyes flickered. She knew tension when she saw it. I got a promotion, I said more to myself than to them. I earned this. Simple words. Heavy, meaning, Diane scoffed. A promotion. What does that mean? An extra $1, an hour, another laugh, another needle to the skin. But I didn't flinch, because sometimes the only way to hold power is to stop giving it away. It's a real promotion, I said, eyes still on the earrings. I lead campaigns now. National ones. My voice stayed calm but firmer. Diane tilted her head. Oh, so now you're some big shot? She turned to Grace. Half-carat studs. That's what 3,000, Grace answered gently. 2,800. Excellent clarity. Diane whistled low. For costume jewelry? Bold. My cheeks flushed, but not from shame. From anger held too long. This wasn't about diamonds. It's my money, I said. I save for them. I'm allowed to buy nice things. She stepped into my space. You did this on purpose, didn't you? I blinked. Do what try to steal my moment. Her voice dropped sharp bitter. You can't stand not being the center. I finally looked at her. And in that moment I realized she wasn't angry because I bought earrings. She was angry because I didn't need her permission. Diane's voice rose, cutting through the soft music. You've always been jealous of me, Eleanor. Admit it. Heads turned. Even Grace stiffened beside the case. I kept my voice low. I'm not jealous. I've just stopped apologizing. Diane laughed sharp, theatrical. Oh, please. You've always been second best. Her words sliced clean. Years of childhood echoes condensed into that one sentence. Second best. Again. Grace cleared her throat, trying to steer the moment back. Shall I wrap these up for you, miss? Her hands moved gently, professionally. I nodded. Yes, I'll take them. No hesitation this time. No looking back. Diane's eyes narrowed. Her hand reached out firm. She grabbed my arm. You're not walking away from me. The grip stung, not from pain but memory. How many times had I been pulled back just when I started to move forward? Let go of me, I said, quiet but firm. The room had stilled. Even the classical music seemed to pause. Only her hand stayed loud on my arm. Diane tightened her grip. You always do this. Play the victim. Make me the bad one. I pulled free, my voice steadier now. I'm not making you anything. You're choosing it. Her face twisted. I knew it. You think you're better now because of some rays, some shiny earrings? She stepped closer, too close. I smelled the perfume, the anger, the insecurity. This is why no one takes you seriously. Eleanor, you're trying too hard. Something broke inside me, not from hurt, but from clarity. I had tried too hard, to be accepted, to be enough, and now I was done. Just as I opened my mouth, her hand flew. A crack of skin on skin, the sound echoed sharp, clean. My cheek burned instantly. I didn't move. I just blinked. Once. Twice. The store fell silent. Even Diane froze as if surprised by her own hand. Her fingers still hovered in the air. Grace gasped softly. A couple across the room stared, their expressions full of quiet horror. One sales associate dropped a pen. My hand rose to my face reflex. The heat spread under my skin, but my eyes stayed locked on hers. Diane didn't look sorry, just rattled. Then a voice behind me, low, firm, commanding. Touch my wife again, and see what happens. Everyone turned. A tall man in a dark gray suit stepped forward, impeccably dressed, eyes like steel, and suddenly nothing made sense anymore. Diane blinked. Excuse me, she said, voice shaky. The man didn't flinch. He stood slightly in front of me now, protective. You heard me, he said. If you lay a hand on my wife again, you'll regret it. The calm in his tone was colder than anger. Wife. My mouth opened, but no sound came. I had never seen this man before in my life, and yet he spoke with certainty. The entire store was watching. Even the security guard stopped mid-step. Grace looked between us, confused. Diane took a step back. You must be mistaken, she said. She's not your... But he cut her off, gaze never leaving her. Catherine, are you all right? I couldn't speak. I wasn't Catherine. But in that strange silence, his lie felt like the first protection I'd ever known. I'm not... I started, but he was already turning back to Diane, his voice firm again. I don't know who you are, but this stops now. Diane's mouth opened, but no words came. She glanced at his watch, his suit, the weight of him, and for once she hesitated. Grace stepped in, voice gentle. Is everything okay here? The man nodded slightly. She was assaulted. I witnessed it. Diane snapped back. She's my sister. This is a misunderstanding. Her voice cracked, a mix of fear and pride unraveling. My heart pounded. I should have said something, clarified, but I didn't. Because I wanted her to feel small for once. The man turned to me again. I'm sorry for the confusion, he said softly. But my point stands. What happened here is not acceptable. He extended a hand. Charles Whitmore, he said. His voice lowered just enough to create a sense of calm beneath the tension. I hesitated, then placed my hand in his. Eleanor, I replied quietly, still unsure what world I'd just stepped into. Diane scoffed. Wait, Charles Whitmore? The tech guy? Recognition flickered in her eyes. A shift from arrogance to calculation. I love your company, she said, suddenly all sugar. I've read about Novosphere. You're doing such amazing work. Charles didn't look at her. His eyes stayed with me. Are you sure you're okay? He asked again, and this time I nodded. Not because I was, but because someone finally had asked. Not with judgment, but with care I wasn't used to. Diane folded her arms. Eleanor's just upset. She overreacts sometimes. Her voice forced a light laugh, but her eyes were tight-cornered. That's not true, I said. My voice felt steadier now. She slapped me. In public, because I wouldn't let her tear me down again. She's jealous, Diane snapped. Because I'm engaged and she's not. It hung in the air, cruel and childish, but I didn't take the bait. Charles glanced at the security guard who stood silently nearby. Then at Grace, still holding the velvet box, he turned to Diane. Calm but sharp, I saw everything he said. You mocked her, grabbed her, then hit her. It doesn't matter if you're sisters. It was still wrong. Diane opened her mouth, closed it again. For the first time, there was no excuse quick enough to hide behind. A second man entered quietly, older, distinguished in a pinstripe suit. He walked with purpose, eyes scanning the room. Mr. Whitmore, he said with a respectful nod. Is there a problem? Charles turned slightly. Mr. Bellamy, thank you for coming. That name Bellamy, the owner himself. Even Diane looked startled. The tension shifted again. Charles gestured calmly. This woman assaulted another customer. Mr. Bellamy's expression tightened. We have zero tolerance for that here. Diane laughed, but it cracked mid-sound. This is ridiculous. Eleanor, tell them. We were just talking. A little argument, sisters do that? She looked at me, pleading now, and for a moment I felt that old pull, the instinct to smooth things over, to protect her from herself. But not this time. She slapped me, I said, in front of everyone, because I stood up for myself. Mr. Bellamy's face turned grave. I'm afraid we can't allow that. He looked to the guard. Please escort this woman and her guests out. You're serious. Diane's voice rose. You're throwing me out. Do you know who our father is? Her panic slipped through the cracks, but no one responded. The guard stepped forward. Ma'am, this way, please. Bridget and Nancy trailed behind Diane, both silent faces flushed. Diane turned back one last time. You'll regret this, Eleanor. Mom and Dad will hear what you did, how you humiliated your own sister. I said nothing, not a word, because for once, silence was power, and I had nothing left to explain. Mr. Bellamy turned to me. I'm truly sorry for what happened. Grace handed me the earrings wrapped now ready, and Charles remained beside me steady as stone. Charles glanced at me, a trace of concern still in his eyes. Please, he said quieter now, let me make this up to you. I looked at him, really looked. A stranger, yes, but in that moment the only one who had stepped in without hesitation. I don't know what just happened, I admitted. He smiled gently. Neither do I, but coffee might help if you're willing. I hesitated. Everything felt surreal, too fast, too much, but something in his voice was grounding, so I nodded. Okay, coffee sounds nice. Mr. Bellamy personally rang up the sale, his tone apologetic, respectful. As I signed the receipt, my hands were still trembling. The blue box in my bag felt heavier now. Not just jewelry, but proof that I didn't back down, that someone saw me. Outside, the sun hit sharp on the sidewalk. Charles walked beside me, quiet at first. Just the sound of footsteps and the distant hum of traffic. There's a place around the corner, he said. Quiet, good coffee. And they don't rush you out. I nodded, still not fully grounded. The cafe was small, warm with soft lighting and wooden booths. We took a seat near the back. A server brought menus without asking. I'm sorry again, Charles said. My wife Catherine is in London. You reminded me of her. Same build, same dress, even the hair. I let out a shaky breath. So, it was a mistake, he nodded. Yes, but I meant what I said. No one deserves that, he added, family or not, and for the first time all day I let my shoulders drop, just a little. The server returned with drinks, a latte for me, black coffee for him. I wrapped both hands around the cup. It steadied more than the warmth. She's always been like that, I said. Diane, pretty, loud, always the favorite. My voice felt small but honest. Charles listened without interruption. She says things that cut deep, I continued. And somehow I'm always the one who's told to be the bigger person. He nodded slowly. My younger brother and I had a similar stretch of years. Resentment runs deep in families. I looked at him surprised. You a billionaire with sibling issues? He gave a half smile. Money doesn't fix old roles. It just hides them better. That made me smile too, just barely. The kind that hurts but feels real, like a bruise finally named. I bought those earrings, I said, not to show off, but to remind myself that I earned something. On my own. Charles leaned back thoughtful. I get that. When I sold my first software, I bought a ridiculous watch. I raised an eyebrow. He smiled. Didn't need it. Didn't even like it much. But it meant I was worth something. I nodded slowly. That's exactly it. The diamonds weren't just decoration, they were declaration. He sipped his coffee, then asked, What do you do, Eleanor? I'm a designer, I said. Lead campaigns, branding, digital strategy. His expression shifted, interested. We're actually building a new consumer app. Security-focused, clean interface. Then casually, would you send me your portfolio? My heart skipped. Seriously? Seriously. And just like that, the world tilted again. Back at home, I opened my laptop. The blue bag sat beside me, those earrings still untouched but already unforgettable. I polished my portfolio until midnight, tightened every layout, rewrote every caption, picked only the strongest work. A part of me still doubted, was this real? Was Charles just being kind? But another part whispered, what if it isn't? By morning, I had the email drafted. Short, professional, hopeful. I hit send with fingers crossed and a heartbeat louder than I liked. Hours later, the reply came, Impressive work, Eleanor. Joanne Sullivan, our creative director, would like to meet you this Friday at 2 p.m. I stared at the screen, letting it sink in. This wasn't a courtesy. It was a door opening. That evening, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 3 missed calls from Mom, 7 messages from Diane. None of them mentioned the slap. Call me now, one read. You embarrassed the whole family, said another. Then I forgive you for overreacting. It almost made me laugh. I didn't respond, not out of spite, but because for once I didn't feel the need to explain. Instead, I opened the velvet box. The diamonds caught the light still steady. They weren't just pretty, they were mine. Earned, chosen, paid for. Not gifted, not begged. No one else's approval attached. Just effort turned into something that lasted. I placed them in their own drawer, next to a printed copy of my resume, because I knew Friday might be more than just an interview. Friday came faster than I expected. I wore a dark green blouse, simple, confident, slipped on the earrings. They caught the morning light like quiet armor. Novasphere's headquarters towered above the city. Glass walls, clean lines, quiet power. Inside, everything gleamed, but nothing felt cold. I checked in at reception. Joanne Sullivan will see you shortly. The assistant smiled. Water or coffee while you wait? Water, please, I said, voice calm though my palms were damp. As I sat down, I heard my name low and familiar. Charles, dressed in jeans this time. Relaxed, but still sharp. Glad you made it, he said. You ready? As I'll ever be. He smiled. You've got this. Joanne's direct, but she respects strength. Joanne arrived moments later, sharp copper hair, bright green glasses, and the kind of walk that made you sit up straighter. You must be Eleanor, she said, shaking my hand firmly. I've heard good things. Let's head to Aspen Room. Charles followed quietly. Joanne glanced back. You sitting in? He nodded. Personal interest in this one. Inside the room was light-filled open. No interview desk, just a round table. I liked that. It felt like a conversation, not a test. She opened my portfolio on her tablet. Let's talk design philosophy, she said. No canned answers, just how your brain works. I exhaled. Finally, something real, so I told her. And as I spoke, I felt something shift, not nerves. Ownership. We dove into real problems, brand disconnects, messy client briefs, deadlines that steal creativity. Joanne listened, nodded, challenged. She pulled up a recent Novasphere ad. What would you change? I didn't hold back. Too safe. The copy's clean but forgettable. Charles chuckled softly. Joanne smiled. Good. We need someone who speaks like that. No flattery, just clarity. She asked about teamwork. How do you handle strong personalities? I paused, then said, I grew up with one. That made Charles glance up. Joanne waited. I've learned to set boundaries, but also find common ground. Fast. Joanne leaned back. Most conflict is just misaligned intention. I nodded, and fear of being overlooked. She didn't say much after that, but her eyes said enough. She saw me. The interview wrapped gently, no dramatic ending, just a quiet mutual knowing that something had clicked. We have other candidates, Joanne said, gathering her notes, but you'll hear from us by Wednesday. I smiled. Thank you for the opportunity. As we stood, Charles turned to me. Do you have time for a quick tour? I'd love that, I said, still holding the edge of disbelief. He walked me through open spaces, glass offices, quiet pods, teams in quiet motion, focused but light. On the rooftop, the city spread wide, raised garden beds, tables, soft breeze. This is for resets, Charles said. Perspective lives up here. I looked out over the skyline. My life had shifted in 6 days. And now, standing there, I wasn't waiting for permission anymore. As we headed back down, Charles slowed near the elevator. I hope this isn't intrusive, he said, but how are things with your family? I paused. Complicated answer. They think I should apologize to Diane, I said, for making a scene. He raised an eyebrow. Not for slapping you? I shook my head. They don't even mention that part. He nodded slowly. Family patterns are tough to break, but what you did at Bellamy's, that was strength. Don't lose it. Something about his words settled deep, not advice, a reminder. As I drove home, the day replayed in pieces. Not perfect, but real. For the first time in years, I didn't shrink to fit. I had taken space, and the world didn't fall apart. That night, my phone lit up again. Jessica Diane's name read her voice tight through the speaker. We need to talk about what happened. I sat on the edge of my bed. All right, I said. But not if it starts with you expecting me to apologize. A pause, then sharpness. Excuse me, she snapped. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. I didn't raise my voice. You slapped me. That's assault. Oh, come on. It was barely a tap. It left a mark, I said plainly. You did it to shut me down. Diane sighed. Irritated? Not sorry. This isn't about earrings. It's about you stealing focus from my engagement. The old me might have folded there, but not now. Not everything is about you, Diane, I said. Not anymore. You've changed, Diane said, accusing, like it was a crime. You're not the same sister anymore. You're right, I answered. I've changed. A long silence followed. Then cooler now, Mom and Dad want us at dinner Sunday. They expect you there. It wasn't an invitation. It was a command, as always. I'll think about it, I said. I have things going on. Like what, she scoffed. You're not that busy. Actually, I let the pause stretch. I just interviewed at Novasphere. The silence sharpened. That guy from the store, I didn't gloat. Yeah, he arranged it. It's real. You're making that up. Why would I asked. No answer. Just breath. Then a quick whatever. I ended the call before she could spin it. I felt light and tired, but mostly free. Sunday afternoon, Mom texted dinner at 5. Pot roast, dress nicely, no mention of Diane, no mention of what happened. I stared at the screen. In the past, I would have replied instantly, showed up early, smiled through clenched teeth. Instead, I wrote, I'll be there at 5:15, running errands, a small delay intentional, not out of rudeness, but choice. At 5:17, I pulled into their driveway. My heart thudded, but I wasn't scared, just steady. Dad opened the door. You're late, he said. Hello to you too, I replied, stepping past him into the familiar quiet. Inside, the air smelled like roast and tension. Diane sat stiff on the couch, scrolling her phone like it mattered more than anyone in the room. In the kitchen, Mom was arranging a salad. She looked up briefly. Jessica, good you're here. Can you set the table? The usual ask. Always me, never Diane. I paused, then said, Actually, I think we need to talk first. Her hands froze mid-toss. I don't think that's necessary, she said. Let's just have a nice family dinner. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. A nice dinner, I repeated, where we pretend Diane didn't slap me. The air tightened. Her face hardened. She's under stress, Mom whispered. Wedding planning. Let's not make this bigger. That was always the line. Don't make waves. Keep peace. Stay small. Before I could reply, Diane walked in. Oh my God, are you still on about that? Her voice full of practiced indifference. It was 5 days ago, I said firmly. And yes, I'm still talking about it, because no one's taken responsibility. Dad joined us cautious. What's all this about? He asked, eyebrows furrowed. Jessica's making a scene over a small disagreement. Diane rolled her eyes. It wasn't a disagreement. I slapped her because she wouldn't back down. My father held up a hand. Girls, calm down. Let's not escalate this. I am calm, I said, voice steady. I'm stating facts. Diane assaulted me, in front of others. The store owner asked her to leave. A stranger had to intervene. My mother's face tightened. That man had no right, she said. I shook my head. He saw abuse when he saw it. Something this family refuses to see. A heavy silence fell over the room. Mom's face had gone pale. Dad's brows furrowed deeper. Abuse, he repeated slowly. It's not an accusation, I said, voice calm but firm. It's the truth. Years of words and now this. Diane's lips pressed tight. I've always supported you, she said, but her eyes searched for rescue. Name one time I challenged, just one. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. My parents exchanged looks, awkward, silent. Mom's voice softened. Families have ups and downs. Love without respect isn't love, I said, feeling the weight lift. It's control. And I'm done. Dad's voice sharpened. What does that mean? I took a deep breath. It means I'm setting boundaries. I won't attend family dinners where Diane's behavior is excused and mine is criticized. Their silence was loud. I won't pretend everything's fine when it's not. And I won't apologize for standing up for myself. Dad's disbelief showed. So you're giving us an ultimatum? No, Dad. I'm telling you what I need. What you do with that, I said, is your choice, Diane scoffed. This is ridiculous. You're acting like I committed a crime. It was one slap. One slap too many, I said calmly. It's not just about the slap. It's years of being less than, of having my achievements ignored while hers are celebrated. Mom shook her head. We've always been proud of both girls. Really? I asked, voice steady. When I told you about my promotion, you barely acknowledged it. But when Diane announced her engagement, there was a celebration. Dad jumped in. An engagement is a big life event. A promotion isn't the same. I stared at him. Or maybe, I said quietly, Diane's achievements fit what you value, and mine don't. The room went still. Mom busied herself with the salad, avoiding eye contact. Dad shifted, looking older. She finally spoke. Those are pretty earrings. I touched one lightly. They're what I was buying when Diane slapped me. They look expensive, she said with a note of disapproval. They are. I earned them. My words hung in the air. No one said more. The tension settled, but the distance remained. Some things don't heal overnight. We moved to the dining room. The usual seats, the usual silence. Then the doorbell rang. Diane jumped up to answer. She returned with Matthew, tall, polite, but unsure. Matthew, this is Eleanor, she said, like introducing a stranger. He nodded and smiled. Congratulations on your promotion, Diane added quickly. She mentioned you work in design. Yeah, I said, guarded. Matthew glanced at Diane, then back at me, polite but distant. Dinner started with careful talk, school board meetings, boutique updates, and Matthew's real estate listings. The air was thick with unspoken things. When dessert came, Mom's apple pie, Matthew noticed my earrings. They're beautiful, he said softly. Diane smiled, watching me closely. Diane started talking about the jewelry store. Quite an upscale place, she said, with a tone that tried to sound casual but held an edge. I wondered what version of events she'd shared with Matthew. I kept my voice even. Yes, it was my first time there. I told them about Charles Whitmore, the billionaire who stepped in. Matthew's eyebrows rose. The Charles Whitmore of Novasphere. Yes, I confirmed. I even interviewed at his company on Friday. Mom looked surprised. You didn't mention that before. It's just a job opportunity, I said, trying not to sound defensive. Not a life event, like an engagement. Dad seemed to reflect, of course we're interested. Tell us more. So I told them about the interview, the impressive headquarters, Joanne Sullivan's tough questions, and the innovative workspace. They listened maybe for the first time with genuine attention. Sounds like a big step up, Mom said, and I caught real pride in her voice. I nodded, feeling a tear threaten. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start, a small acknowledgement. Diane stayed quiet through it all, her usual sharpness softened. Later she came to the kitchen, her voice low and almost sincere. Did you really meet Charles Whitmore? I nodded. He thought I was his wife. She smiled awkwardly. That's actually pretty cool. I searched her face for sarcasm, but found only hesitation. She added, the earrings look nice on you. I shouldn't have made a scene. It wasn't an apology, but it was progress. I smiled faintly. Thank you. And your ring is beautiful. Matthew seems like a good person. She nodded, a small smile playing. He actually lectured me about the slap, said it was unacceptable. I raised an eyebrow, surprised. A smart man, I said quietly. As I drove home that night, I thought about the shifts, small, subtle, but real. No big revelations, no hugs, just change, the kind that sneaks up slowly, that makes old patterns crack and opens new space. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. Eleanor, this is Charles Whitmore. Amy was impressed with your interview. Claire wants to meet you. I stared at the screen, hope and disbelief tangled tight. This was more than I dared dream. The future was calling. Charles's message lingered on my screen. A formal offer from Novasphere. Claire wanted to meet me before. The next step in a strange new journey. I sat in my car looking at the earrings catching streetlight. They sparkled like tiny stars, beautiful but also more. They were proof that I had stopped shrinking to fit someone else's story, that I was finally standing tall. Sometimes pain pushes us forward. Sometimes a slap in a jewelry store can change the course of a life. And sometimes it's just the beginning. 1 month later, I sat at my new desk on the 12th floor of Novasphere. The city skyline stretched wide outside. Sunlight poured through glass walls. A small succulent sat beside my monitors, a welcome gift for my team. The transition was swift, exhilarating. Claire had become an unexpected friend. Warm, intelligent, and somehow familiar, like a reflection of me. Charles checked in often, offering subtle mentorship. His presence wasn't intimidating, just quietly supportive. At home, I moved to a bigger apartment, closer to work with a fitness center and garden. A fresh start for a new chapter. The earrings held a place of honor, not just jewelry, but a symbol of growth, of finally owning my worth. Our relationship with Diane had shifted, not close, never that, but less hostile, a fragile peace settling in. She sent a brief message. I've been thinking. I shouldn't have slapped you. I'm sorry. I replied simply. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. A family birthday dinner came next. Mom invited us all. Diane and Matthew had news to share, and I planned to be there. The earrings would come with me, not as armor, but as a reminder that standing in my truth had led me here. Sometimes endings are really beginnings, and sometimes a single moment of courage changes everything. If this story touched you or reminded you of your own journey, please share your thoughts below. Your voice matters here. Don't forget to subscribe. There are many more stories ahead waiting to inspire and empower you. Thank you for being part of this journey.